My name is Lynette Owens, and I'm the Vice President of Global Consumer Education and also the founder of Trend Micro's Internet Safety for Kids and Families program. I am joined this evening by my colleague, Kristen O'Grady. Kristen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's so great to be here. I usually sign up to do these events during the day, and I used to do these events a lot in Chicago. My kids are in Chicago public schools, so I did a lot in the schools. But I'm such a big fan of Lynette. When I found out I could partner with her tonight, I signed up and gave my kids melatonin. So yeah, my name's Kristen O'Grady. I've been at Trend since I was in my 20s, so a long time. And I live in Chicago, and I have 2 young kids. And this is just a really special program for us to do for all of you. Not just to teach you, the pillars that Lynette has created, but also it's a great opportunity for all of you to socialize together because we're all in this together ultimately.
Thank you, Kristen. And again, if you're joining and like to listen in Spanish, just select the globe icon, and our colleague Gigi will be available. She'll actually be interpreting tonight's session in Spanish, so you can listen to her instead of us. So a couple of housekeeping. Well, first of all, welcome everybody. And as you could tell by the chat, you've got fellow parents from across the country. Tonight we have a number of schools represented and from coast to coast. So I really appreciate all of you for being here tonight, but most especially those in the Central and Eastern time zones that you chose to be here when you could probably be asleep instead. So we're really glad you chose your evening activity to be with us. Again, if you'd like to listen in Spanish, select the globe icon and pick Spanish, and you'll be hearing Gigi. We do encourage you to sign in and let us know you were here using the link in the chat. We'll post it a few times through the night. This session runs about 90 minutes once we include all of the Q&A, but it could run shorter. So we really commit ourselves to be here. We know from doing this for 14 years now, we know there's going to be a number of questions coming up, and we're committed to answering as many of them as possible. And when you ask questions as a parent, please know you're probably not the only one thinking of that question. And even if you are, your question and the conversation we have around it could be extremely valuable to all the other parents. So if you can't stay that whole time, that's fine too. The session is being recorded and will be provided to the person at your school who organized this event for your school community. So that person will be receiving a copy of the recording, a link to the recording of tonight's event. And because tonight we will be interacting, we will be using the chat a lot. So please don't put your questions in there because they'll get lost. Please use the Q&A function to submit your questions in English or in Spanish, because we have Gigi here to help us. Either language is fine, the Q&A. Finally, when you leave tonight's event, you'll see a survey pop up. So we encourage you to give us that feedback because it's very, very helpful for us. Okay, there's a question already in the Q&A, and that is this only for parents? So it's primarily directed to parents, but we know that very often you want to have your kids listen, and it's absolutely fine. Some of it, might not be so interesting for them, but there are a couple of moments that I think wouldn't be bad for kids to listen in on. So it's up to you if you want to have them listen in. It's absolutely fine.
Lynette, is it also appropriate to say that we also can curate, we can curate our content specifically for an audience for in the future?
Absolutely. And during the course of the pandemic, we haven't been able to visit schools. If you think that us coming to visit you would be of great help to your children or your children's school or classroom, please let us know. In the coming year, we do plan to go back out into schools where the demand is there. And I'll show you in a minute some of the content, an example of what we do in classrooms. So that will be later on today. Yes, I think that's a great point.
Yeah, and the children are a much harder audience, so we really have to be on our toes. And so, but it's a really fun audience as well.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to actually try to get to know all of you a little bit better before we get going. So we're going to launch a poll here, and I'll let you read through
Okay.
this.
Yeah. So just we want to get to know everybody, and again, just so we can have an online community tonight. So if everybody could just put in the chat, and thanks for doing it already, to in the poll of is your child 5 years older or younger, 6 to 10 years old, or C 11 to 14, or D 15 or older?
How old is your oldest? And it looks like we have a winner pretty close here. Yeah, there's one that's rising to the top. We'll just give it another second here, and then we'll share the answers.
I guess if I was answering, I could say A and B. So I'm with many of you.
Your oldest, just how old is your oldest?
Oh, oldest is B. I'm in the majority too. Yes. Okay.
My oldest is D. She is graduating from high school this year and leaving me this fall, which I can't even believe after doing this work for 14 years. Oh my goodness. All right, let's end it here. So we do have, it looks like we have a nice mix with most of you saying 6 to 10 and a big follow-up with 11 to 14. So that's really good for us to know and how to tailor tonight's content.
And we're going to do one more polling question before we get started.
Correct.
All right. So the second question is, what are you most interested in discussing this evening? A, managing screen time for kids. B, helping kids stick to age-appropriate content. C, dealing with online bullying or hate. D, getting ideas for positive uses of the internet. Or E, I'm not sure, just here to learn something new. And, also, we don't have all of the above, right?
No, but I know there's a lot of people who've said that they'd like an F option, which is all of the above. But I will say, after doing this format for a couple of years, there is one that tends to rise to the top every single time. There is one. And then there's another one which always tends to be number 2. So we'll just give it another minute here. Please let us know in the polling what you're most interested in discussing. Okay, let's end it here. And here we go. So our winner is helping my kids stick to age-appropriate content. So yes, that is the one we hear of the most. I will say early on in the pandemic, though, it was managing screen time. Sure. So yeah. now that we're, kids are back in school and all of that, it's switched to helping my kids stick to age-appropriate content. That's great. Thank you for letting us know, because it helps us focus on the areas that probably would be of greatest interest to you. But we will be covering all of these topics. There's quite a range of topics we'll be talking about that actually moves with your child's phases through life until they're as old as my oldest, which is moving on to college. And the way that their relationship with technology evolves over that period, and I think it goes without saying that a lot has changed over the last couple of years, almost 2.5 years, I think now. But a whole bunch of things didn't, because when it comes to technology, especially those of you with the oldest children still in those younger ages, they still need our guidance, because the risks are very much there. And we know from the course of the pandemic that some of those risks actually became a little bit more acute. Hopefully that will subside as things start to move through the next phase of the pandemic. But we will share some information about things we saw that changed because of the pandemic when it comes to risks and our kids with technology. But on the flip side, the benefits are still there. And maybe for the first time, you and your family started using technology in ways you may not have before. Zoom might have been a word you never knew before the pandemic because it was a tool mostly corporations used. And now it's something everybody uses. So we have to remember that now more than ever, teaching our kids to be good digital citizens is paramount. It is more important than ever. And when we talk about digital citizenship, it actually includes what we mostly worry about and we mostly think it's about, and that is how do we teach our children where the risks are and how to avoid them. Of course, it's a conversation about being safe and secure, but it also includes digital literacy, the how I actually do this. So we might teach kids the importance of privacy and how to why you should protect it, why it's at risk. But digital literacy skills includes, well, how do I actually do that? Where are the privacy settings? Why do I need to turn on two-factor authentication? How does that make me more safe? And so on. It also includes how we behave for our own sake, but also the sake of others. The rules that are governing these online spaces that kids really should be aware of, not only because it's the rules, but also because it's the right thing to do. And finally, very often when we talk to kids about technology, it can be a long laundry list of what not to do. Digital citizenship is as much about what not to do as it is about what we should do. And we as parents, as guardians, and those raising young people using technology these days, we need to also encourage the ways that they should be using technology because it can benefit them, someone else, or the world around them. We've got to balance the conversation with things they should do, as well as those they should not. So we like to organize digital citizenship into these 4 buckets. And Kristen, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, so I think, the exciting thing is, like Lynette said, it's education, but it is being online and how to be online and how to be a digital citizen. And so these are the 4 pillars of our framework. And so, we'll start off with being online. So what is your network? The what, the where, the when, the how. And I love this one is, setting the example, and we'll enjoy talking through that one. And the green one, be safe. So let's think of information privacy. You don't want to give away your name, your phone number, your address. And then I don't know if everybody is aware of geotagging, right? So if you post a picture online, you're unintentionally giving out a timestamp and location. So there's that as well. And then it's really important for all of our kids, of being, they can be safe online. Our orange pillar is to be kind. And so, wow, I think this is so big, sharing positivity, not just with others, but within, themselves. And I think it's so easy to the comparison of online, and how everybody else's life looks so perfect but your own. And I think as adults, we struggle with that. So think about our kids. And then the last pillar is be savvy. And that, the internet can offer so much. If used properly, it can be such a great opportunity for our kids of, getting into, a college or, whatever the case. So if used properly, it's a great opportunity for our children. Okay, so then we'll go through setting up the environment. So let's see. You think about, I don't know if I get migraines. So COVID was really hard for me, but so for instance, I dimmed all my screens, I tried the blue light glasses, and I just couldn't use them. But the 30-30-30, Lynette, remind me what that is.
Yeah, so I think it's a great habit to encourage kids to do. You could set timers you can encourage to get up and move around, but 30-30-30 rule is something a lot of eye doctors like to encourage, which is every 30 minutes, look away 30, at something 30 feet away, you could look out the window for 30 seconds. And that's another way that you can really protect the eyes, because we know from working with the Digital Wellness Lab, which is out of Children's Hospital Boston and the Harvard School Medical School, that over the course of the pandemic, especially, kids were coming into their doctors complaining about things they'd never really complained about before. What were they? Eye strain, headaches, neck aches. So we can't stress enough, even if we're not on screens as much as we were at the beginning of the pandemic, kids still need to learn these skills of how to protect their bodies. Very often online safety is very digital, but this is part of it too.
Yeah, yeah. And, for posture, like I think when my kids I always notice my kids are like hunched over, like looking at the tablet, and I'm always trying to like correct them. But even for myself, I mean, I don't know if anybody here has like a cute desk for themselves or their kids. And then now that we're spending more time on our computers, you're like, well, this is not going to be a good fit. So like I have like a sit stand, so I actually stand all the time, and I can like move my desk like up and down. But I bought like a bolster for my back, so it's just so important if we're going to spend so much time in front of our computers that we're in a good space and we have a good environment set up physically, like Lynette mentioned. And yeah, just taking breaks and getting up, standing up. And my husband actually like paces up and down the hallway, which is really annoying during the workday, but it's so important to take a brain break and physical break. Anything else you'd say about that, Lynette?
I think just because if we don't do it and set the example, our kids won't either.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So then we get a lot of questions about this, but to physically set up your network in your home is limiting access to the router. So everything comes with a default password, that somebody could just log into. So you want to make sure that when you're setting it up that you change the password right away, and separate. It's really easy well, maybe it's not easy. I shouldn't say it's easy, but you can have a main network and then you can have a guest network. So, if you have your babysitter or anybody else coming into your home can be specific to on the guest network, can be helpful, because think about if you have your work computer or family photos or whatever have you on your main network, you can keep that separated from anyone else. And then
sorry, I just want to jump in here and say, this is actually really important if you are doing a work from home model, because putting your kids' Xbox, their reader, their Kindle, put all that on the guest network. Because if for some reason they accidentally tap on something on the screen or click on something that ends up bringing in maybe a malicious piece of software into your home network, but they're sitting on the guest network while yours is on the main, that can help protect that sensitive information on that device. So again, most of the more modern routers give you the option to separate your network, put the kid stuff on guest, anyone else that's not, got sensitive things, and only your most important things on the main.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, a Wi-Fi extender. I mean, I live in a really old house. And so we wouldn't be able to have internet in our whole house without the Wi-Fi extender, and they're great and easy to, sometimes they work, but for the most part, they're easy to set up. But I think that's a great opportunity depending on your home or basement or, where you need internet. And then again, some of us are working from home and some of us are not, but it is challenging if I'm on a video call and my husband's on a video call, or your kid is streaming a video, it really can bog down the whole network. So just to be mindful of that. And sometimes if you can just limit even using your camera on a call, or maybe you call in, that it can, that can save bandwidth. Anything else you'd say about that, Lynette?
I think it also can keep peace in the house.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so making sure that you have security on every single device, right? That's going to be really, really important. Your firewall is a piece of security also, so you're going to want to make sure that's on. We're going to talk about passwords and how important passwords are. And we have a great example. And then you might hear of, if somebody says MFA, multi-factor authentication. It's when you log in and then they want to send you a text or they want to send you an email to verify your identity. And so that just creates a stronger barrier to break into. And so multi-factor authentication is a really great option. And I would say most private companies and hospitals and they are using multi-factor authentication to identify you properly before you can get logged in. And then virtual private network. Lynette, do you want to talk about the VPN?
Yeah. A couple things. One thing on multi-factor. Yeah, if you're logging into your doctor's the portal with your health information with your doctor's office or hospital, some sites are forcing you to do this, to have it. They're just forcing you, no choice. But most of the apps that you're using and your kids are using aren't forcing you to do this. They're strongly suggesting that you do. And I'm talking TikTok, Roblox, Instagram, certainly Facebook, Gmail, right? So you really should have this on every single app. It is one of the best ways to protect yourself because we also know, being a security company, the trend is some ridiculous number, I want to say 40 to 50% of email addresses end up leaked on the dark web. It's hacked, right? Your password of your email or something has been hacked. So it's okay if someone gets a hold of your password, but they don't have this second step, which is this multi-factor authentication, the code that gets sent to your email address or to your phone. They can't get in because they don't get that code that you need also. It's the second lock. So that's why we really highly recommend you have this on for all your kids' apps as well as your own. On the VPN, this is actually more important when you're outside of your home. So if you're connecting to public Wi-Fi in a Starbucks or your city has it or airport, always consider using a way to protect the traffic you're sending, the information you're sending from your device to, let's say, Amazon or some other shopping site, because otherwise, if you're using public Wi-Fi and you're not using a virtual private network, which encrypts that information, then it could get intercepted by someone who has bad intentions. So please, on security software and on virtual private networks, do a search online. Look, there are many options out there. Trend Micro has options, but there are many options out there. Please make sure that you're using these in these circumstances.
Yeah. Okay. So then I when I would get an iPhone update previously, I would just ignore it, and it just annoyed me, right? And come to find out that when you're not updating, and this isn't just your iPhone, but if you're not updating any software, you're basically, that's a vulnerability. That's sort of like a, hey, you can come in and get into the system. So you always want to update any software as soon as you can, because there's basically an open door for someone to get in. So that's really important. And then when you think about, like your Gmail or different applications, those don't require updates because, Google is hosting Gmail and they update it. They update it all the time. But for anything that's software and requires an update, you want to make sure that you're doing the update and, do it automatically. You can have your phone plugged in at night and do it. So I would just say for any software, make sure you're updating it as soon as you can. Okay, strong passwords are really important. I think Lynette, used the example of how many times do you get an email that somebody's email was hacked into and they're asking you for like, hey, I need a gift card for my niece. And my dad falls for those. So it's really important to have passwords. One of our colleagues mentioned that there's some sites that allow you, actually, they recognize the space sign as a character. That's pretty advanced for me, but to have a longer phrase, and then this is an example of how you can turn a longer phrase into different characters. But it's important not to just have a very simple password. You want to have a complex password and change it often. And I don't know about you all, but I have an iPhone and I try not to save the passwords in there anymore, because sure enough, every once in a while you get an update that all the passwords I had saved on my iPhone were discovered, online somewhere. So it's really important to change your passwords, even though it's a pain in the butt to do it. And then backup and storage. I think a lot of us as parents, my treasures that I have on my iPhone are all my pictures. And to think about if, if any of those got, destroyed, I would be in shock. And so it's really important. I know in the last session we talked about it's so easy to buy like a small storage device. You can back up things online. Anything else, Lynette, you'd say about backup?
So we recommend that you do both. So if you're an Apple family, you get some space for free on iCloud. If you're an Android family, you get some space in Google Drive to back things, Google Cloud to back things up. But we also recommend, like you said, Kristen, the secondary backup drive itself, because if something happens to either one of those, you have a backup of your backup, if that makes sense. Yes.
I mean, I've had to use it before. I actually, I did an internet safety for kids and family workshop at a local school. And on my way there, my water bottle spilled and ruined my whole computer. And somebody had a computer and I had my backup and I could at least present and I had everything on this little device. And they're really, you can get them in any electronics or Amazon, but they're really, they're really easy to use, and you will be glad you did it. So.
Great. Well, now we're getting into some meaty stuff, because in the poll, you all told us you're really worried about making sure your kids stick to age appropriate content. So, there's a lot of tools already available to you with no extra cost. It exists in the phones. It exists on the actual app stores. There are settings there. It exists within the apps and games that your kids are using, or the gaming consoles themselves. So we're going to talk about a bunch of them right now. But I will say this, given all that we have to go through tonight, this section creates the most questions of the evening for sure. What I'm going to do is go through them fairly quickly, hit the high points, and then we encourage you to enter your questions in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to answer all of them throughout the rest of the evening. Okay, so here's a couple of examples. First, how many of you out there, let us know in the chat, how many of you are using Apple devices, or your children are using Apple devices? That includes iPads, iPhones, iPod touches, and actually I heard last week that they will stop producing the iPod. Remember the iPod? It was so cute.
I used it. I still use my iPod.
They're going to stop producing those. Yeah. So let us know in the chat, how many of you have kids? Are you an Apple family? Let us know in the chat. And I'd like to see between Apple and Android how many families are using. Okay, great. We got quite a few Apple families. And so, I'll just say really quickly, some of you may be familiar with this feature, some of you may not. For the sake of you who don't know, Apple actually introduced about 2 years ago now something called screen time. And this is a setting that every Sunday will alert you to how much time you've been using your device, but it's also a way that you can make sure that your kids' Apple devices are also being used in ways that you're okay with. So What that requires is for you to go into settings, screen time. You actually have to set up each kid with an Apple account, and you can do that even for kids under the age of 13. Set them up under your family, and when you select any one of those kids, you can start to limit, you can see how they're using it. You can see how much time they're spending on the different apps on the device. You can decide that you can only use it for an hour. Here's my recommendation about all of these settings. If you're getting information about how your child is using your device or an app, or their device or an app, please use it as, okay, it's information, but that's a perfect opportunity for a conversation. Look, I noticed that you seem to be struggling with getting your homework done early, but I also noticed you're spending a lot of time on YouTube here. So maybe we need to talk about this. It might be time to limit YouTube watching during the week or only after homework is done. These tools that are available that we'll be talking about, a bunch of them in a minute, we encourage you to use that as a way to open conversations with your kids. So, if you're not familiar with screen time already and your kids are using Apple devices, we highly recommend you use screen time. Maybe some of you are already doing that, and that's great. And how many kids are using Android devices out there? Let us know in the chat. Any Android families out there? I know you're there. Let us know in the chat. Any Androids? Okay, we got a few. Of course we do. I have another trick question though. How many of you are both? How many of you have hybrid homes where you're actually using Apple and Android? Yes, I actually think most houses are both. I think most houses are both. So if you're not familiar, for those of you who have children using Android devices, Google actually launched 4 years ago an app called Google Family Link. It basically does exactly what I just showed you that Apple screen time does, which is it enables you to filter the types of apps they're allowed to download based on the age ratings. You can limit screen time through it. You can track their location, which you can also do in Apple devices as well. So it's a separate app, though. You have to download this. So I highly recommend if you're not familiar with it already. How many kids out there using YouTube, right? There probably isn't a single kid in the world who isn't watching YouTube. So if you're not familiar with this, there was a time where if you said yes to YouTube, you let your child watch a video and then you just closed your eyes and hope that the next video that came up was not inappropriate, right? No longer. YouTube last fall introduced something called the YouTube supervised account. All this requires is for you to have a Google account. And on the browser that they're watching YouTube on, you can choose Explore, Explore More, or most of YouTube. And that's mostly divided by age ranges. So if you chose Explore and you let them onto YouTube, that means for kids about up to age 10, they'll be able to see videos that's really appropriate for up to age 10. Explore More gets you up to about age 14. Most of YouTube gets you about to 17. It excludes all adult content, nothing for 18 and above. So if you're not familiar with YouTube's supervised account, please consider using that and maybe putting your mind at ease. Like all other filtering capabilities like this, they're not 100% perfect, but they're doing a much better job than if you just let them free on the regular YouTube. Okay, for those of you with really young kids, I would say, younger than 6, 7 years old, younger than that, I would recommend using YouTube for Kids app and not using the regular YouTube. All right.
We did get a couple questions, one in the chat and one in the.
Okay.
I don't know if when's a good time to answer them.
Yeah, I'll get to those in a second, Kristen. So if you don't mind there. In the chat, how many of you have allowed your kids to use TikTok? I really love this question. And I love how you all respond to this question. How many of you have allowed your kids to use TikTok? Yeah. Yep. Nope. No way. Usually, for those of you with kids that are not teenagers, the answer is pretty emphatic. No. Um, for those of you with older kids, right, I'm sure it's totally fine. And whatever's okay for you, whatever fits your family is fine. I will say this, that a lot of people don't know this, but about 2.5 years ago now, right before the pandemic began, TikTok actually launched a setting called family pairing. This is a way that can ease you and your child onto TikTok. What it requires you to do, though, is to download TikTok both on your device and theirs. And once you do that, you go to a setting called digital well-being and you pick family pairing and you designate which one is the parent one and which one is the child's device. And in the parent one, you can here limit how much time they're spending on it, what kind of content they're seeing, and who might be able to communicate with them through it. So I've tested this out, and I will say the kinds of videos that come up, pretty harmless, pretty harmless. Again, like most filtering technologies, they're never 100% perfect, but they're getting better and better. It does not replace your role as a parent. No technology can. So you should still, even if you set this up, you should still be checking in on them. Okay. So make sure that you consider that. And the other thing you should know about TikTok is they decided, along with one other app, Instagram, that anybody under the age of 16, you have to be 13, but between the ages of 13 and 16, will have the highest levels of privacy settings on automatically. That is not true of other apps, okay? Just those two right now. So Instagram, you may know about the whistleblower on Facebook about the study done that wasn't publicized, but because of the whistleblower became public, that they knew that some of the features and the way their social media sites were designed were actually creating a lot of anxiety and angst among young people. So they committed to making things a little bit more healthy and better for young people by launching last month what's called the supervision setting. I wish this was around when my daughter started using Instagram. And again, it's especially great for those of you when you get to the point of saying yes to Instagram. It allows you to set it up so that you could actually see a lot of what they're doing in their account, who they're following, who's following them. You could limit their time on it. You could actually do a lot more than you could before they launched this. However, just like all these tools that give you information, you should use it as a way to reinforce the conversations and the rules and everything that you want to set with your kids. You can't actually, through the app, you can't unfollow for them. Okay, you can't do that. You can only see what it is they're doing and say to them, look, you know, I noticed that famous person that you're following, they don't really, I don't know if you want the whole world to know that you're following them. You might want to really think about who you follow and who you allow to follow you, because these kinds of decisions you make, people get a sense of the kind of person you are. So, again, it's an example of the kind of conversation you could have with your child when they begin to use social media, or even if they're already heavily using it. Anybody's kids use Roblox? Yeah. If you're not familiar with Roblox, Roblox is not a game. Roblox is a platform. It's a community of games and gamers, right? Yeah. I mean, there's some really fun, harmless games on there. I think it's the one I use is the one where you follow. I have a bumblebee and I just dig flowers for pollen, and then we go make honey, the bee follows me around. And there's lots of other avatars, which are actual people in the world playing the same game in the same place. Okay, so a few things you should know about Roblox. Number one, it isn't only 10-year-olds. Okay, actually, there's quite a lot of older people using Roblox because your child could create a game. A lot of very creative kids who have that talent actually love Roblox because they're actually creating games. Many other kids just like to play the games. Now, the thing about Roblox is even though everybody's an avatar, it doesn't limit the fact that people can free chat with each other. People can actually just chat freely with each other, and it could be someone older. So
Yep.
we're showing you a video here of Roblox's how you would set up settings that keep them safe, that could limit the kinds of connections and conversations they could have with mostly strangers that are on these platforms. So you set up a pin just like you would in Apple when you're setting up controls. You could turn on two-step verification. You could limit who can message them, who can chat with them on the platform or within the game, and so on. Okay, so that's just showing you that if you have not done this for the kids who are heavily using Roblox, you really should be doing that. And finally, because there's free chat, Roblox does a really good job, both through automated artificial intelligence and machine learning of language, as well as human people, monitoring what kind of things people are saying to each other. So if someone were to say to your child on Roblox, hey, where do you go to school? Or where do you live? Or how old are you? Those kinds of messages won't go up. They won't be able to do that. But again, like any other filters, it's not perfect. You still need to be involved as a parent and checking in on your kids' use. And finally, I know that parents worry about things like you can be creative, but that means you could create a t-shirt on your avatar and have it say anything. So we know that this has happened, that children are playing this game and they see avatars with t-shirts with really inappropriate language or images on the t-shirt of the avatar. Again, these filters won't do anything about those, not yet anyway. So again, don't let settings take the place of you as a parent. Make sure you're still involved. Play some of these games with your kids. They're really not that hard. Discord, I'll go quickly through these next few. Discord is, anyone ever hear of Discord? Let me know in the chat. Huge with gamers long before COVID. And then it got really popular among non-gamers and even among younger kids because gamers actually hung out here. They could actually co-view somebody playing a video game. Discord is like a super chatting app. And you create, if you were to create a group text in your phone, what Discord calls that is a server. You create a server where we all hang out, right? We can chat with each other, but you can also share screens. So gamers would use it because they could see each other gaming and they could sort of communicate and game from far apart from each other. People were using it to go view movies during the pandemic because Disney Plus and Amazon Prime did not offer that kind of thing until later in the pandemic. So that's how Discord sort of found this new extra boost of popularity. The thing about Discord, they're getting better. They did not have the kind of settings we've been talking about. Okay, they're still behind. They're still not really realizing, oh my gosh, we got kids on here now, young kids on here. So we're just showing you screenshots of the fact that you can filter things now. You can decide who can connect with you. You can report people if they're not behaving well, block them, and so on. They're getting better. Anybody's kids use an Xbox? Nintendo, Switch, PlayStation, gaming consoles, right? Xbox actually 2 years ago launched a wonderful app called Family Settings. And from the app, you don't even have to go to the box. Your child can ask you while they're playing, can I have more time? And you can say yes or no. Can I play with this other person? Yes or no. It's totally up to you. All of these things are free, by the way. Everything that I've mentioned so far costs you nothing, right? This is a new app from, it's not that new, it's 2 years old now. And as far as we know, PlayStation and Nintendo don't have a similar app as far as we know. But on the console, you can filter the web browser and whether or not it can go to inappropriate sites. And you can also filter games. Maybe you don't want violent games being played on the console. You can do that kind of stuff on gaming consoles. Finally, after doing this work for 14 years, last fall, we're a security company, cybersecurity company, but we decided to take some of our engineers and put it towards this app, which is also will forever be free, called Trend Micro Family. You go to tmfamily.care, and it does a lot of what we talked about. What we're trying to build is a tool that really addresses a lot of the issues we've been talking about. We'd love for you to try it. It's not perfect. We want to keep building it to meet your needs. So please give it a shot if it's something you're interested in. And our goal is to be able to let you do all of those settings through this app, rather than having to go to every single app we just talked about. Kristen, I'm going to hand it over to you now on setting the rules.
Okay. And when do you want to do the?
Yes. Sorry. Let me get to some of the questions.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Our school system has very strong filters, but the kids find loopholes and share them with each other. One of them found them using called unblock games or whatever. How do we stop this? It's like whack-a-mole for a parent. That's a great point. So I think the question is whether or not they're using a school-owned device or a home, something you bought for them. So my guess is this could be a school-owned device at school. I think one of the best things is it's going to be whack-a-mole, and it's got to be coupled with communication with your school, first of all, and making sure you're communicating this concern with the school, because the IT system, the IT department should be really on top of this. There are ways to limit this at the web gateway when they're on the school network. The issue is once that device comes home, now that's on your network. So there's a couple things you could do. The first is there are ways to do the filtering at the router level. Okay, there are routers out there that give you family settings called parental controls, where you can decide at the router level what sites they're allowed to connect to or not. You can create specific URLs and add that. We call that a blacklist, which means these are ones that you just can't, you're not allowed to access, or you can just block by category. Yeah, Trend actually has a router product called Home Network Security that can do this. I think Disney Go has another one. There's a lot of options out there. But I really strongly recommend having a conversation with your kids about the appropriate use of a school-owned device. A lot of kids don't realize that everything they're doing on it can be seen. The IT department knows exactly what they're doing, and they won't know until it reconnects to the school network. They're going to know everything. I think it's important to impress upon kids there is nothing they're doing that people will not find out about. If they think they're being sneaky about it, not at all. So we highly recommend, again, use some of the filters we talked about earlier, either at the router level or, you can use it also on the device itself. But since this is school-owned, you probably don't have a lot of control of it. So I would say do it at the router level and couple it with a conversation about appropriate use of that device. How do we teach our children to protect themselves from an adult who wants to contact them, and how to detect an adult who wants to do this? We're going to talk about this in a little bit, so I'm going to hold off on that question. And then I'm a Gilderland mom wanting to know. Thank you.
Follow-up.
Oh, it's a follow-up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. I will answer this later on. Okay. Great. Awesome.
All right. So yeah, and I think just those devices that you can plug into the router, I think I got someone at Trend to send me a free one, but it was really cool where you can restrict certain kind of content, you can restrict things to certain kind of devices. And then you can see, you have visibility. So it was a really great exercise, to do. So setting the rules. So, we went through how to set up your network and, but, now the rules, right? And so I did this workshop once at my kids' school and it was like positive discipline. And I would like to have that lady come and just like consult me on a daily basis. But, they talked about like family meetings and, making your kids part of it. And so this is a great opportunity to do that for your rules, of coming together as a family, and bringing them in to talk about, okay, what do we think these rules should be? Like for our, my kids are younger. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. No devices at the table, at the dinner table, like it's off limits. And I'm just using that as an example. But then what are the consequences? So sometimes mommy breaks the rules. And so then what are the consequences? And, when you set these rules with the kids, then, my friends joke around that like my kids are my accountability coach. But, they hold me accountable and each other accountable. And so I think that's a great opportunity to set them together as a family. And so let's think about what apps, are we allowed to use? And I think what Lynette sort of made an example about, Roblox, but, we can do homework together. And I did this exercise once with Lynette and she said, okay, hey, let's just pick Instagram. Let's just pick on Instagram and let's research it together with our kid. Hey, this is what I learned about Instagram. This is maybe some pros of joining it. These are some cons of joining it, but you're sort of partnering with your kid and doing some homework. And it's always a great idea to, focus on apps that are known with a lot of reviews. And, Lynette pointed out that there's apps with stronger privacy settings than others. And then when, so when are they allowed to use these apps? Like she pointed out, like, and especially through COVID, the quarantine, how long were many of our kids online for if their school was remote? And now, for instance, my daughter, she does an exercise on her tablet every single night for school. And so, so we're on our tablets and devices more than ever, but, to think about, it's hard to, like somebody said, you shouldn't sleep in the same room that you work in. And so I think about also, you can use the technology for fun and use it for school, but then to be able to talk about that with your kids of the difference. And, an exercise to help your kids to think about things that are healthy for them but how does screen time fit into that overall day? I had my kids' wellness checkup and the doctor asked me, do they have more than 2 hours of screen time in a day? So that was a question. It's interesting. So, okay. And then how long can they be on for a given day? When is it? I think setting, at least for my kids, like setting clear expectations and then sticking to them is really important. And then using the tools that we talked about, to help you. And then where can they be when they're using their devices? So, home, and think about if they're video chatting or with a group of friends and, to think about a spot where you can check on them. But if they have their headphones on or they're in their room, a lot of parents will say that you can't use your device in your room, or if it's distracting, if another child is sleeping or doing homework. So, just think about that. That's a consideration to think when you're setting the rules of like where they can be when they're using their devices. And Lynette mentioned, right, if you're at somebody else's house, their settings could be different. So, and then the last thing is with whom can they use their device with? So, for younger kids that are just starting out on social media or gaming or getting a device for the first time, and this was one of the questions that A. Tucker asked in the chat, of who can you connect with? And Lynette, anything else you'd add? Like, you want to have like a known contacts where you're only talking to known people. But even within that, you could have a sibling, there's a lot, there is a lot of things that you can't prevent. So I think that's what, if Lynette, if you could sort of dovetail on the importance of just in education.
Absolutely. And I think, another thing, and you touched on this, Kristen, earlier, which is one of the most effective things you can do in setting the rules is actually having your kid participate in the creation of the rules, but also what the consequences are if they break them. Because they're more apt to stick to the rules they help create. If they have siblings, do it together. Oh my goodness, you know how siblings, you don't even have to do anything. Sometimes they hold each other accountable and you don't even have to intervene. So that can be really powerful. Yeah, I will say on what we're also big fans of common sense media, because if you're
Yeah.
wondering if a particular app or game is okay for your kid, they give you a nice third party perspective. I put the link in the chat. They give you 3 reviews for free, and I think after that it's not free per month. Per month. So they tell you, if even if this app is age 12 and above, what is it, and is it really okay or not? They do websites, they do games, they actually do movies.
Yeah.
By the way, if you have kids of multiple ages, you know how it's so hard to find a movie that
So
everybody
hard.
wants to watch, right? That's okay for like 14 and 8 years old. Oh my gosh, this is such a nightmare sometimes. So actually Common Sense Media is a great a resource. Um let's talk a little bit about how long, because even though it wasn't the top of your concerns when we asked you in the polls earlier, a bunch of you did say we worry about screen time. So we actually want to flip the script a little bit though. I think it's not only because of the pandemic, but it's also because screens are an unavoidable part of everybody's lives now. If you think about it, almost anything we're touching now has screens, has some connection to the internet, right? And increasingly for children, it's schoolwork is requiring screens.
Mhm.
So not all screen time is equal, right? And that's why I think we got to stop thinking about screen time blank, right? Just as a whole, and think more about what is it we're doing with that screen time. So this 24-hour concept comes from the Digital Wellness Lab, again, made of physicians from Children's Hospital, researchers out of Harvard Medical. And this is the belief, which is it's a great idea to think about and talk to your kids about the fact there's only 24 hours in a day, right? And you can have them in a single day. Talk to them or have them fill in a list, or maybe make a pie chart with 24 slices and they color in. And you ask them first, how many hours in a day do you typically do things that support your health, that are physically good for you? How many hours do you sleep, have meals or help prepare them, ride your bike, go for a walk, do something, sports, something like that, right? How many hours? Now, on top of that, how many hours in a day are you spending that supports you as a learner? How many hours are you in school doing homework? Maybe you're reading or practicing an instrument or some other hobby that really expands your skills or learning in some way. Now, on top of that, how many hours are you spending to support the relationships that are really important in your life? Whether it's with family, friends, neighbors, whatever. And when you think about these things, with the exception of sleeping, these are all good things. Spending time doing these things are really good things. However, some of them actually require screens. Okay. Now, there might be time left over. And if there is, once you've done all of these things in a day that are really good for you, it's okay to say yes to the screen time for fun, right? As long as we're paying a close attention to green, blue, and pink here on the screen as well. As long as you feel like you're spending, healthy amounts of time doing these other things, it's okay to say yes to screen time for fun. But if that time left over is 4 hours, it does not mean you say yes to the Xbox for 4 hours, right? That's where your rules and the tools that we talked about can come into play. And other things, they can do other things to fill up that time left over, right? You can create a list of things. Some parents suggested make options, put them on a slip of paper, fold it up, put it in a box, and have them pick out what do I do with this time left over. Some of it could be screen time, but some of it could be, playing old-fashioned games too, right? So we like to, again, flip the script on screen time and instead say, what's happening in 24 hours, and am I doing enough of the stuff that's good for me? Now, parents, I think we should use this on ourselves too. We should use this and test ourselves. Are we doing enough of the things for ourselves too? Are we setting the example that we need to set with our children too? So I'll hand this over to you, Kristen.
I think this was when I first joined the program. I don't even know how old my kids were, but I think this was one of my biggest takeaways is with myself, that I'm a mirror. And that's the funny thing about having kids is you realize like what words you say that you don't even realize because they're like a mirror of you. So, I think do as I say, not as I do doesn't really go that far with kids. So, so just like Lynette said, with all those other like life pillars, like if I'm going to eat healthy and I'm going to be active and I'm going to read a book, like I have to set the example for my kids. And so that's so important, and I think we all struggle with as adults just being on our devices a lot. And I was reading something and it said that you're getting on your phone is like a dose of digital caffeine. And I thought that is so true. So anyway, but making sure, because our kids are going to mirror back what we do. And so it's so important that, if we're going to set rules with our children to say, hey, we're going to leave our phones in the kitchen at night, or no phones in your bedroom, or no phones at the dinner table, or, whatever the case is, we have to model that for them. And I think that is so important. That is so important that we can be the best example for our kids. And then, being able to have, that openness to be able to talk to them about things so they feel comfortable telling us about different things that maybe they've witnessed or experienced or heard, that they feel comfortable coming to us, for that.
And I'd love to see everyone put in the chat, what rules do you have for yourself when it comes to technology? Let us know in the chat. What rules do you have for yourself?
And I think Lynette said this on a recording or another one, that our phone has replaced so many things, like, right, your phone is your alarm clock. It's your, what's the weather going to be like today? So it's really been so ingrained in our lives that it's harder for us to, I think it's harder to set a good expectation because it's part of so much of our life now.
Yeah, I remember the days where the only way to get in touch with somebody when you're trying to meet them somewhere is you went to a pay phone and you left a message on their voice machine and then hoping they'd listen to it and then leave you a message on your voice machine. And that's how you got in touch with each other. Where are you? Where can I meet you? Right? Remember those days? It's crazy. Very crazy.
All right. So did anybody want to put in any different rules that you have in your house? I was impressed. I did a group of parents the same day that I spilled my water bottle on my laptop. And I was really impressed. Like, they had a lot of different things that they practiced, that when they walked in from school, everybody put their phone in a basket. They had, one mom had a rule of no phone in your bedroom. So we have no phones at the dinner table, putting the phone down when the kids are talking to me. Yes. That's a good one. Instead of, I caught myself this weekend saying, hold on. And so that's good. That's a good one.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing. All right. Okay. So, am I doing this one, Lynette? Privacy
Yeah,
settings?
yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So actually, no, can you do this one and I'll do 27?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
So, one thing we want to say about privacy settings, and I mentioned this earlier, is that almost everything you're using, almost everything your kids are using, especially if you didn't pay anything for it, a lot of apps are free, right? But they're really not. So they do not have the strongest level of privacy settings you might want. And I think Kristen said this before, which is every time your kid starts using a new app or game, I think a good habit is to have them immediately try to find the privacy settings so that you together can see if this is set the way that you think is safest. It gets them into the habit of doing that as they get older. Oh, do I need this app to actually connect to my microphone or my camera or my contact list? Do I actually really need to do that? I'm actually showing you a huge favorite of kids today, still after many years, and that's Fortnite. Fortnite doesn't have privacy settings the way you probably want. So make sure you go in there and set it to what you want to be the most private if that's what you think is best for your kids. And we just want to make sure that you understand that privacy settings by design are not set at the strongest because many of these apps need to collect data about you in order to do what they do, which Kristen's going to talk about next.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like we said, when you get a device or a router, don't use the default password. I think the same philosophy is with your privacy settings. Don't use the default settings and make sure that you're researching, what is going to be the best fit for your family. Okay, so yeah, within the privacy settings, there's a clause, and as Lynette was saying, it's buried in the legal language, but we have no choice. It's right, you have no choice but to accept the terms. But it's basically saying, hey, yeah, privacy settings can help protect you from other users, but not the actual company. So if we're going to pick on Instagram in this case, buried in the legal language is whenever, wherever, and forever. So everything you do on Instagram is yours, but it's also theirs too. So, that's why we say that nothing is private, because they're collecting this information that they can use about you. So that's, something to talk through, just and educate ourselves, but and our kids that yes, you could have all the privacy settings, or somebody would say, I'm on Facebook, but I don't post anything or something like that. But Facebook is still collecting your information, and they own that.
Absolutely. And usually when we go into schools and we talk about this very thing, it really incenses students. They get pretty mad. I remember a fifth grader asking me if she could sue Instagram because they were collecting all this about her. And I said, did you hit I accept? And she said, yes. And I said, no. Then no, because that's what you agreed to. And then I wanted to ask her why she was on Instagram in fifth grade, but I didn't ask that question. And what's behind all of this is the business of free, and that is they need to stay in business. So they do that by selling your information to advertisers. Because without that information, they can't create really engaging and enticing advertising to get your attention. That's why they're doing it, right? Kids don't really talk about the business of free apps very much, and that's the connection with privacy.
Yeah, free is not free. So okay, so now we're going to talk about cyber criminals. And although cyber criminals might not be targeting your kids specifically, obviously kids can easily walk into things. And I mean, it's just everywhere, like everywhere. And so again, having that open door policy, that your kids can feel comfortable coming and talking to you about something. So maybe they clicked on a link or whatever the case, emailed, responded to an email or whatever the case. You want to make sure your kids feel comfortable coming and talking to you about, what they've experienced. And so, I think cyber criminals are very smart and talented individuals, and they can profit on our personal information. So any of us can be victims. And some examples of how kids might fall into some of these traps is, fake search results. Right? I don't know if we talk about this at this point, but you always want to look on when you're on it at a URL, you always want to make sure it has that lock symbol. So HTTPS, that it's secure. If it's just an HTTP, it's not secure. And so you just want to be mindful of that. It'll have a lock on your browser bar. But fake search results, you could go to some illegitimate website. I had one of my friends said that she was trying to find the specific pair of shoes for her son, and she found them on a website and bought them, and then realized it was a completely illegitimate website. So if it's too good to be true, it's probably not. Content that is too interesting not to click on. And even fake information can be posted on social even on social networking sites. So just because it's on like a Facebook doesn't mean it's accurate. And so sometimes if you click on it, it would ask you to download something. And so you just want to make sure that you educate your kids on only going to websites that they trust, to talk about the HTTPS. And if it looks suspicious, like, don't click on it. I think another trick that is, sometimes you can do like an embedded URL where I could say, hey, click here, and I'm going to take you to trendmicro.com. But really it could say, hey, like Moody HS, I'll just say, Moody HS, come, it'll click on here. And then you're really going, if you sort of hover over that hot link, it's actually a completely different website. So, you always want to be aware of pop-ups, updating your security regularly. We already talked about that, changing your passwords. Lynette, what else would you say?
I think making sure you're using security software, as we said earlier, on every device, for sure. I think that would also help, because even if they accidentally click on any of these things, if it's a reputable product, it will block them from going to that site in the first place.
Yeah. And even like Trends Technology, for instance, we can definitely block, you can go into the settings to block certain types of websites, like if you wanted to block social media or gaming, but then the malicious websites that wouldn't fall into that category, you also need those blocked too. And so that's where, having a good security will help with those malicious websites.
Yep. I want to do a real quick time check here for everybody. So we're nearing the last 12 minutes of our session. So I'm going to go kind of quickly through the last parts of these, probably quicker than we normally would have, but I want to respect your time and hit some high points here. This is the first. So we can launch this poll, Kristen, if you want to
Okay.
go through.
Yeah,
so this is our last poll.
The last poll, if everybody could let us know, do any of your children have their own cell phone? A, yes, B, no, C, we're getting there, or D, not quite yet.
Yeah, and really we have to add up B, C, and D as the same answer. It's either yes or no, right? So, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, okay. Starting to shift. All right. And I do remember we have a lot in the 6 to 10-year-old range, as well as 11 to 14-year-old range here as the oldest children. So, wow, okay, let's end it here. We have, looks like it's incredible. 60% of you said yes. Actually, that's unusual. So, all right. Well, there's a few things about the phone we want to go through real quick, and then we're going to do the final two sections fairly quickly, in the interest of time. So I do want to impress upon you, and someone had asked this question about what if a stranger is contacting you. So there is something about the camera that is so enticing. It's the one thing about having a phone that kids really love the most, right? The selfies, the group selfies, using filters on the images, taking videos of friends, so on. So there are a couple things. Kristen, you mentioned it earlier. Number one, when you buy a phone, location services is on for the camera. It's on by default. If you don't want the exact location of where the images that you're taking were taken, go in your phones now and turn off location services for the camera, because every picture collects tons of metadata, the type of camera, the type of phone, the time and date you took it, and the latitude and longitude where on this earth the picture was taken. So if your child's taking a selfie, posting it on social media and saying, I'm at home, blah, 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 they're going to know exactly where you live because the photo has the location attached to it. Okay. Number two, many years ago, I was asked a question from a parent. Well, actually, maybe back up a second. We know during the course of the pandemic that there was a trend that was very troubling. And if there are any kids listening, and even if there are not, for you parents who haven't yet bought a phone for your kids yet, and even for you parents who already have, please have this conversation. You should never feel pressured to take a picture of yourself that you would not want the whole world to see, even if the person asking you likes you and you like them. Okay. Or even if it's a person you don't know, you should never feel pressured to take an image like that, because the sheer fact of taking it puts you at risk already. If your phone is being automatically backed up to the cloud, there's already a second copy. Just taking the picture, not even sending it to anyone yet. Okay? You should never feel pressured. And if you do, kids, they should feel like they can come to you worried about something like that happening. Keeping the lines of communication open is so important, because the mere act of taking an image could technically be, it technically is a felony having possession of it, right? Of an underage person. And I think you know what I'm talking about when I say those kinds of images. During the course of the pandemic, unfortunately, we work with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There was a huge rise in self-produced images and videos of underage kids, those kinds of images, right? We really need to have this conversation with our kids that they should never feel pressured. They shouldn't do it because it's not safe anyway. It's going to get out there as long as it's on that phone. They could lose the phone and someone could get access to it. And then many years ago, I was asked by a father who said to me, my kid's a good kid. Everybody likes him. The phone he has is in my name. I pay the bill. What happens if he ever receives one of those from someone in his school? What should we do? Because the phone is in my name. So my answer to you is this, again, also to have this conversation with your kids. If that ever does happen, please encourage your child to feel like they can come to you. They should come to you, let you know, and then delete it. Do not walk around with it. Do not forward it on to anyone. Don't even forward it on to the school. Okay. And then you as a parent, if it's happened, you need to do one of two things, right? First, thank your child for letting you know that's happened. And secondly, if you know the parents of the child who sent it and you feel comfortable, you might want to let them know. If you don't, which most of us wouldn't, you need to let somebody know, because the thing you don't know is who else got it. It could have gone to many other people, and now an investigation happens and they're going to know that it went from this IP address, this phone, to your child's phone or to the phone in your name, in the bill you pay. They're going to know anyway. So you might as well head that off by taking action, right, on your part. It's really important because, again, the production, possession, or the distribution of those kinds of images is technically a felony, right? And they will not prosecute young children the way they would older people. But doing nothing is not an answer. Doing nothing is not an answer.
And there are
Also,
long-term consequences that we probably all have examples of, kids getting kicked out of schools. So there are long-term consequences to this, and that's important.
It is, and also the child who sent it, all of a sudden it gets around, and very often you see a new kid all of a sudden show up at school at a very late age, right in the middle end of a school year. Oftentimes it's just the embarrassment of what happened where they were. They're trying to leave and go somewhere else and escape what happened to them. So I think it starts with us, and I think it starts with us telling our children, have fun with that camera, but don't ever feel pressured to turn the camera on yourself in a way that you wouldn't want the whole world to see. I'm just going to skip, real quickly with gaming. I will just say, does anyone have a kid who does not stop playing the game when you say, hey, I said 10 minutes, 10 minutes is up? Anybody have a kid like that just doesn't stop, doesn't listen to you when you tell them the time is up? I'm sure we do. I'm sure many of you have kids like that. The only recommendation we have on this is, in addition to using the filtering tools, time limits, you might want to consider games with times, right? I love Minecraft. Minecraft is wonderful, right? But it can go on and on and on. So games that have time limits, Rocket League. Anybody know Rocket League, right? You just drive a car around and hit a soccer ball into a big net. And the time ends, right? Madden football, NHL, NBA 2K, these games just have times at the end. So consider timed games if you have a kid having issues with that. On being kind, I will just say really quickly, and Kristen alluded to this earlier, just reminding our kids that being nice to other people it's important because it's the right thing to do, and for all the reasons we said, because everything's being tracked about us, it reflects on us. Everything we do, click on, search, watch, like, follow, it's all being tracked. All those things add up to a picture of who we are when it's online, right? But kindness isn't just about saying nice things, okay? This becomes a really big issue for those of you who have middle school kids, right? It also means how we respect the differences among the kids and families. The ages of 10 to 12 are the most awkward, difficult times, because what are you going to see? You're going to see half of the kids already with phones and half of them that don't have them yet, because some of you out there have already decided, my child's not getting a phone until 8th grade, and that is your choice, right? And others of you are going to say, I need them to have a phone now because now they're walking to school by themselves and they're alone and I need to know how to reach them. That is fine too. Every family has their own rules, and some will allow social media and some will not. My only request to those of you, when this awkward period in your life is happening, remember to include those who don't have a phone yet. Kids get so excited about starting to create group chats. Oh my gosh, the number of texts they start firing off of nothing but emojis, right? They're just, I don't know, they're just trying to get it out of their system. They're so excited. And they start getting inside jokes, and all of a sudden the kids who don't have a phone feel left out. So if they're starting to organize gatherings, please, if we all did this, right? If we all did this with our kids, and some kids don't have a phone, encourage your children to say, so-and-so doesn't have a phone yet. Can you make sure they know about the gathering, whether it's a birthday party or going to the movies or whatever, a sleepover. The other thing about respecting is privacy, okay? This causes so much drama in middle school, okay? When they take the big group selfie for the first time and they get to post it on Instagram for the first time. But what happens? One of them really likes how they look, and everybody else goes, I don't really like how I look on that. And then the whispering campaigns start behind people's backs, and all of a sudden there's full on drama and maybe bullying and whatever, right? If we all asked each other, hey, are you okay if I post this? We take a picture together, and then I'd say, Kristen, are you okay if you good with this? Because if you said, no, I'm not going to post it, right? Please do this with each other as adults and do it in front of your children so they start doing it with each other. You know how it feels when someone posts your picture online, didn't ask you, or your kids, right? Has that ever happened to you? It's an awkward conversation to have to tell a family member, which I had to. Can you please take that down? Actually, can you please, like, my daughter's really private. She was in a bathing suit and she just didn't want it up there, right? And so we said, can you please take it down? Respecting privacy. Different families might say yes to, violent video games earlier than others. Different families might say yes to social media earlier than others. We all must respect each other's family values and rules. Okay. And when it comes to kindness towards oneself, all I will say is do not let your kids get caught up in getting likes and followers and comments, because it's very self-affirming when someone likes your posts. We know this. We know this when we do this in Facebook. So children feel it too. And every time they get a like, it's a shot. It's like another shot of dopamine. It feels good. So I want to do it again. I want to do it again. It keeps on just reinforcing, makes me feel good. We've got to remind our kids to break that cycle, and that their value is not equal to the number of likes, followers, anything online, that their value is worth so much more than that. Okay. Because when they don't get the likes that everybody else gets, it can make them feel horrible. So it's up to us to remind them that's not what their value is. So we can be supportive by nurturing kindness, by being prepared that if ever anyone was really unkind to my kid, I know what I might do, right? Be prepared. What would you do if that happens? Maybe you never have to go to the answer to that question, but just be prepared. Think about it as a parent. And ask yourself too, what happens if your kid is the one who bullied? What would you do? Again, be prepared with the answer, and hopefully you never have to use it. Many times parents become so surprised because it does happen, and they want to deny, no way, my kid didn't do that, right? Sorry, but even our children, none of our children are perfect, we know, and neither are we, but just be prepared. And when you see good things happening online, show them what it looks like. Share those stories that you find of actually good things happening on the internet, so they know that the internet's not just full of hate and divisiveness. It isn't. We just don't give any sunlight to the good that's happening too. Just closing on good habits and good uses, very easy to fall for things. We don't even know anymore who we can trust or what we can trust. Easy to pretend to be someone and create an account as if you were someone else. Hard to know what information we can trust or not trust anymore. We encourage you, and I won't go through all these questions now, but a skill of pausing and asking questions. Tell your children anything they see or read online that causes them to feel a very strong emotion actually is a red flag. You should already be a flag right there, because the word, at best, it's clickbait. At worst, it's actually the work of a cyber criminal or propaganda or something else, right? So if something's making you feel a strong reaction, it's the time to pause and ask questions. And I won't go through all the questions here, but we worked with the National Association for Media Literacy Education to create a guide for parents on how to have these conversations with your kids when it comes in advertising, when it comes with some kind of news story or some kind of hoax that's floating around YouTube, right? Have any of you looked yourself up on the internet? Let us know in the chat. And what did you find? Kristen, have you ever looked yourself up?
Oh my goodness, I did, and I found some like oh my gosh, yes, well, first of all, I found something I wrote in German class in college, so that was cool. And then I just found some other things that I didn't even know were online, and that was before things were readily online. So,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We encourage kids to do this, for you to do this about your kids too. Actually, ask your kids if they've ever looked themselves up. When I've been in classrooms, many kids have said, yes, I've actually looked myself up on the internet. So you might find two things as Chris, you might find your cyber twin, someone who actually shares your name but isn't you. And you might want to know who that person is because there could be things they're doing that you don't want associated with you. So you should just be aware that they exist and, be able to explain, maybe if you're going for a job or college or something, yeah, that's not me. Okay. This is my cyber twin, right? Or you might find things that you didn't want out there. So just a month ago, Google launched a capability, if it's on Google, that you find it. If you find information about their out there, images of your children, information about you or your children, they will remove it. You can
That's
have it removed
amazing.
from a Google search. It doesn't remove it from the internet, only from a Google search, because if you use Bing, you might still find it, right? In order to fully remove it, you got to go to the site who actually is hosting it. It's good to know. So you don't actually go searching every time. You can actually set up a Google alert. Just go to google.com/alerts and you can type in your kid's name, whoever you want to flag. Anytime something publicly indexable goes up on the internet that matches that name or phrase, you will get an email letting you know that's public now. Okay. So here it's just showing you a video of how frequently and where where the content is. It is in blogs or news or whatever. Okay. So I'll stop this video, but it's easy to just set up an alert for that purpose. And the reason we say that is the final point. That is this. We've been following the Kaplan Institute since 2014, and they are the people who do the preparatory exams for PSATs and stuff like that. They started interviewing college admissions officers across the country many years ago. And in the most recent study, the question we've been following is, beyond the application that a student submits to your school, would you look them up on the internet? The first year they asked this, 25% said yes, and it just kept going up and up and up and up until this most recent study, 66% said, yeah, I would. If I needed more information, I would look them up. And for those who did look, 57% found something that wasn't attractive. It didn't help them. In fact, it might have hurt their candidacy into the school. But 38% actually found something that convinced them, you know what? Yeah, this is the person we want. This is the kind of student we want to admit at our school. So the reason I bring that up is because up to this point, we've talked all about how to basically hide yourself. Keep it all private and safe, right? From the people you don't want seeing anything about you. But as we said before, that mastery is an important part of digital citizenship, encouraging our kids to use the internet, not just watching kittens and playing, Minecraft. It's also ways that could be positive for them and for the world around them. So encouraging good uses is an important thing we've got to couple this with. So they can use the internet to learn new skills, promote causes or raise funds for organizations that they really care about. There's great ways to do this through social media, online. You can showcase your accomplishments if you're a great artist or writer or aspiring athlete or performer or musician, right? You could actually create blogs behind passwords when they're young. And then when they're older, maybe open it up so it's more public for the world to see when they're ready for applying for a job or college, right? And we're a big fan of contests. Contests are lots of good ones for kids. if they like to draw or write poems or stories or perform, because they teach them how to stick to a deadline, how to stick to the rules, um, you know, have somebody critique their work, and maybe they'll win and maybe they won't, but they could start to develop a portfolio of all these things they entered in the contest. And that could be something they could showcase later on when they are applying for a job or thinking about college. So really that's how we want to just wrap it up with, and sorry, we're a little over time here. I just want to say that in addition to what we've talked about as parents, last fall we launched our Kids Cyber Academy. And our Kids Cyber Academy is a bunch of modules that includes a video, short animated video, a Kahoot quiz afterwards, an activity sheet, a conversation guide, teaching them about these concepts of, the importance of passwords and privacy, camera safety, healthy habits, and so on. And we continue to add more modules to this, but we'd love for you to give it a try with your kids. Go to trendmicro.com/internet-safety. And these are things we can go into classrooms and actually facilitate this in schools too. So that's what we could either come in and do it with your students, or you can do this at home online. These are our resources for you as parents, trendmicro.com/internet, same website. So you can find a lot of the resources that we talked about today. And our partner PTO Today also has a great number of resources as well. Please know that many of our tip sheets are already translated into 8 to 10 languages, if that would be of use to you or your communities and neighbors. So thank you again. We encourage you to keep it going, keep communicating with your kids, stay up to date. You can follow us online, go to our website for information. And we have one favor to ask beyond staying late already, which is do one new thing. Split the network, guest and main network. Turn on 2FA for Roblox, multi-factor authentication or two-step verification. Download one of these apps that your kids love so you know what it's about. But just do something you had not done before tonight. I think with that, please, we'll stay on for questions. When you leave tonight, you'll see a link for feedback. You'll see a page, for feedback. But we can also post the link here in a minute for feedback in the chat. And if you choose to leave your email address with your feedback, you'll be entered to win one of 5 copies of Trend Micro Maximum Security, which can protect up to 5 devices in your home, including phones, iPads, laptops, desktops. It has parental controls in there, so you can do some of the filtering that we talked about. But you're not obligated. If you don't want to give us your email address, that's fine. It's if you choose to, though, you'll automatically be entered to win. With that, we want to thank you for the extra time you spent with us tonight. Feel free to enter things in the Q&A. And
just,
I think
just to clarify, thank you for posting, and just post your email in the form, and that's how we'll be able to capture it to do the follow-up.
Absolutely. So thanks again, everybody from coast to coast, especially those of you on the East Coast. We may have lost some of you, but if not, then you're my hero.
Yeah, I hope your kids are sound asleep and they did their homework, and tomorrow's Thursday.
Absolutely.
So
it is Thursday, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. We hope you guys have got some great content, and thank you for all the engagement and questions.
Absolutely. And again, the recording will be made available to the person at your school who organized this event for you. If you didn't get a chance to sign in when you joined us, I've just posted the sign-in sheet in the chat. And at the bottom of the page that you see on the screen is our email address. So if you've got further questions, anything you want to hear about, or maybe you'll think about it later tonight, please email us at internet trend_safety@trendmicro.com. Thank you,
All right.
Gigi, so much for joining us, Gigi.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Yes, this was our last one of the year, and we'll have the schedule for 2022, 2023 coming out soon. So new information, new content, maybe new presenters for you. But this was the last one. Thanks for being on it with me,
Oh,
Kristen.
yeah,
Cheers. With my
I'm a
water
big
bottle.
fan. Yeah. I couldn't pass it up. I couldn't pass this up. So yeah. And my husband texted me that the kids were fast asleep. So that's a win.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. All right.
All
Thanks,
right.
everybody. Good night.
Good evening.